You've probably heard that the best time to learn a language is when you're young, preferably before turning 18. And it's even better if you move to a country where your target language is spoken as a kid. Then you will definitely sound like a native speaker. Okay, it is true that you might not pass as a native speaker if you start later, and I will explain why a little later. However, you can still acquire a level of proficiency that will allow you to connect with people successfully and make new amazing friendships. Many people have become bilingual later in life, either by choice or by necessity. For example, I am bilingual, and I am bilingual by choice. English is not my native language. My native language is Russian, and I've been learning English for 10 years now, I think. When I was a teenager, I was absolutely obsessed with English. That was the time when I discovered YouTube and I started watching different YouTube creators, and I was just like, wow, I absolutely have to learn English because I want to understand what they're talking about. And that was my motivation. I just wanted to learn English because I wanted to watch YouTube videos. So that was my choice. And that's how I became bilingual, by choice, not by necessity. Well, maybe sometimes later in life I needed English because of my studies or I needed English because of my job, but originally this spark was created within me because I loved English with all my heart. The same is true for Chinese because I'm also learning Chinese right now. 我上大学的时候选学中文，这是我个人的选择。Something interesting happened to me when I moved to Mexico. That's when I discovered learning a language by necessity. I had to study Spanish because now I lived in Mexico. Me mudé a México hace un año y así que ahora tengo que estudiar español. You have probably heard that with age your brain is not developing as fast, and this leads to a decline in your ability to learn a new foreign language after a certain age. Yes, it is true that the ability to learn a foreign language is the strongest, at least grammatically, before the age of 18. Because after that, many scientists see a precipitous decline. To become completely fluent, you should actually start before the age of 10. And here, what I mean by the word fluent is if you want to sound exactly like a native speaker, like 100% like a native speaker, if you want to understand the culture on a very good level, if you don't want to have any accent, you have to start learning the language seriously before the age of 10. And actually, guys, the reason for that is mind-blowing. Babies can actually distinguish all the different sounds in all the different languages. And after a certain age, what happens is we only focus, like our brain only starts focusing on certain sounds in our target languages. For example, if you're raised bilingual, if your parents always talk to you in two languages, you'll be able to distinguish these two languages very easily, even as a baby, like those two kind of sounds that are predominant in each language. However, slowly but surely, you will lose the ability to understand, I don't know, all the other different sounds. For example, Japanese or Chinese, if your parents never speak to you in these languages. However, the reason why I'm filming this video is to actually tell you guys that the idea that it is impossible to learn a new foreign language after a certain age has been challenged multiple times in numerous research articles. This research article, for example, concludes that there are other factors that play a huge role in language acquisition. And before I share with you guys all the other factors that might influence your language acquisition as an adult, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Skillshare. I'm a person who loves learning, and that's exactly why I love Skillshare. No matter how old you are, you can always grow, develop new skills, and take up new hobbies, and Skillshare will help you here. One class on Skillshare that I am particularly fond of is called Productivity Masterclass, Principles and Tools to Boost Your Productivity. The reason why I'm a huge fan of this class is because it helps me become a more productive person, and it also teaches me important things about time management. And we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but one of the main reasons why it might be so hard for adults to learn a new language is because they don't know how to manage their time correctly. So this class in particular helps me make more time for the things that really fulfill me. For example, language learning or making YouTube videos. So I highly recommend you guys to give Skillshare a try to learn something new and improve your current skills. If you want to get the first month completely for free on Skillshare, all you need to do is click the link in the description. And again, thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Okay, now let's talk about the main two factors that might play a role in your language acquisition as an adult. The first factor is usually the level of your formal education. Usually, it's easier for people to learn a second language as an adult if they already have all of those systems in place. Usually, people who love studying and who already got, a sort of formal education, they have all of those systems in place and they know how to use them to achieve their goals. For example, to learn a new language. Usually when you go to college, you're taught how to study, how to do certain things. And for some people, it might be very beneficial. Like all of those tips and tricks that your college professors taught you might be actually very useful when it comes to your language learning later in life. As for me, I had an amazing college professor who taught us English, and she would always explain how English is all about connecting with new people, because thanks to English you can meet so many different people from all over the world. And I think because of her, right now I have this passion towards language learning, and I absolutely love traveling and having meaningful conversations with locals. The second factor is usually time. I know that you can always find time for something you really want to do, but just think about that. Usually when you're an adult, you have a lot of other priorities in life. For example, your career, or you want to start a family, right? You're getting married, you're having kids, and all of those things are legit and they take a lot of time. Actually, when I was moving to Mexico the first 6 months, I barely studied the language because I was so busy with, moving arrangements, with just other things. And honestly, Spanish was the last thing on my to-do list. And obviously because of that, I couldn't really communicate with people in Spanish the first 6 months, and only later I started practicing Spanish more because I kind of freed up my schedule, and at the same time I realized that it was actually my top priority. With that said, I really want to drive it home for you guys that it is absolutely possible to learn a new language later in life. If you're 20, if you're over 20, over 30, over 40, over 50, 60, etc., it's absolutely possible to learn a new language. There are so many examples of people who learn a new language later in life. And I can be an example for you, for example, because I started learning Spanish like 7 months ago. So when I was 22, 23 years old. I understand that 22 and 23 is not the same as being 53, for example, but still, I'm not a kid anymore, and I'm kind of in this era of, I have a lot of other things on my plate, but I also have to learn a foreign language. I think there are actually numerous advantages of learning a foreign language later in life, and I want to share a few of them with you right now. The first is you can use your life experience, and I, for example, already have a lot of life experience when it comes to language learning, thanks to learning English and then learning Chinese in college. I know what works for me, and all of those things I can implement to learn Spanish successfully. The second advantage is you're in control of your life, right? You probably already have a job, you kind of know what your schedule looks like, and this way you can find the time if you really want to. For example, when I was in college, it was kind of tough for me to find time to learn Spanish because I already had to learn Chinese, and I just had a lot of classes. I had classes, I had homework. There were a lot of things that were not in my control. So that's why sometimes I would slack off. But now I'm not in college anymore, so I'm in control of my life and I can create a schedule that works for me. The third advantage is when you're an adult, usually you understand the main reason why you need to learn a foreign language. For example, my main goal, I guess, is to connect with new people. And it's fine for me if I never sound 100% Chinese or 100% Spanish Spanish, or if my accent in English always stays like this, I'm pretty content because my goal is to talk to people, to build meaningful connections, because that's what I like to do. And that's why from the very first day, I always try to focus on speaking the language as much as I can. And finally, I want to talk about this word fluent a little bit, because yes, to be completely honest, I used to talk a lot about, becoming fluent in English in the past. However, right now, I want to change my strategy a little bit, because deep down, I know this is not what I stand for. I don't want to become fluent in English, because what is fluency? Some people say that fluency means being indistinguishable from a native speaker. Well, I am not a native speaker. Sometimes you can still hear, certain mistakes, or my accent is not perfect. And honestly, I don't want to. I'm tired of chasing this fluency goal, because at the end of the day, I understand that it is not my true goal. However, if you approach this word fluency from a different perspective and think of it as, I'm able to conduct all the business of my daily life successfully. Well, yeah, then I am fluent in English, because I feel completely comfortable when I speak English every day. And because of that, your window of possibility stays open, because when you learn language as an adult, usually if you think of fluency as something very narrow, right? I'm a native speaker. Well, yeah, then this window is gonna close at adulthood. But then if you change the definition a little bit, then you can learn a foreign language at any point in life. Perhaps even more important than when one learns a language is how. How are you learning this foreign language? And I always say that the best way to learn a foreign language is by immersion. Unfortunately, a lot of people think that immersion means going to this foreign country, living there. Yes, it might be a great idea for you guys if this is something you want to do, if this is one of your goals. For example, right now I live in Mexico and I still practice my English. I don't live in the United States because it's not something that I want to do right now. And I can't just, sit back and say, well, I don't live in the US, so no, I can't really learn English. It's absolutely not true. You can create this immersion for yourself. You can create this environment for yourself by watching movies, watching YouTube, listening to podcasts, and just trying to speak the language as much as you can. So yeah, I think that's all I wanted to share about learning a new language as an adult. I hope this video will motivate you to start learning a new language and realize that there's so much more to language learning than just becoming fluent. Don't forget to give Skillshare a try and start learning a new skill by clicking the link in the description. And I'll see you in my next video.